And welcome everybody. We are back with yet another masterclass, and this is not going to be a regular masterclass. So we won't have any PowerPoint slides for you. We won't have any keynote presentation for you. We probably won't even have any game video for you to show. Today, the idea is, to ask as much questions as we can from the both of the gentlemen to my side here. So I want to welcome both John Bleby and Mark Bateman, who are both coaching in England, and in the case of John, also for GB, uh, in the youth development pathway program. So John is the under 21 coach for England and GB. Mark is the head coach for the under 18s in England. So obviously the both of them work really close together in preparing the top talents of England and Great Britain for their next step to the national team. So the idea, coaches, today is people bring on your questions. Let's make this an interactive session. Let's avoid me talking and asking all of the questions here. But I am going to start anyway. So John, let me start by you and asking, and then Mark, you will get exactly the same question. Can you explain a little bit what is your role? What are your responsibilities? And also, how do the two of you work together in that capacity?
Thanks, Ernst. It's really good to be on the podcast. So my role is the head coach of the Great Britain Elite Development Program. So that basically is all the top junior players who are sub-senior. So anyone who sits just below our senior team. Pretty much the age range of that is about all the top talent. It's about 18 to 23 years old. So that's a Great Britain program. What we do is our England under 21s are embedded within that program. So that squad is about 35 players in the Elite Development Program. We call it the EDP. And our under 21s, we have a squad of about 24 who are embedded within that program. My role really is to lead that program, and within that, I'm the head coach of the Great Britain and England under 21s. And my role is also to work very closely upwards, i.e., work very closely with Zach, the head coach of Great Britain and England, from a senior point of view, to make sure we're working as closely as possible to transition players successfully into the senior team, and make sure Zach's very aware of all the good talent coming through, and also to work down. So I work very closely with Mark, who's the under 18 head coach, and as Mark will explain in a minute, Mark leads a lot of our pathway work. So I work very closely with Mark, hopefully shaping the junior talent that's coming through, and making sure the players coming through to the EDP and the senior players are as good as they possibly can be. My role is evolved. I've been at England and Great Britain hockey for quite a long time now. So I started in 2013, and my roles evolved. So I was I used to have a dual role as the senior team's assistant coach and coaching the juniors, and over time the roles evolved into definitely more a junior focus in terms of EDP under 21s. So Mark, do you want to?
Yeah, maybe
Thanks for that, John.
before Mark, before that you jump in, one of you has got his volume a little bit loud, probably, because we're hearing an echo. So if possibly turn down the volume a little bit, or move to earbuds if that's a possibility. So it was doable, so that's not a big problem. But we want to have a clean sound if possible, huh? Okay, Mark, you can hear
That'll
us?
definitely
Is
be
that still echoing?
Yeah.
No, for me it's fine now. Perfect.
Yeah. It's me.
Okay, Mark,
silly
your role.
office.
Your
Cool.
role, Mark.
Thanks for having me on, Ernst. Yeah, my role, there's a number of parts to it. So I'm obviously the under 18 boys head coach, which is kind of a third of the job that I do in a full-time capacity. And then I have two other facets to what I do in terms of making up my full-time job. So um, the other third is working with our talent academies, which are our sort of designated performance programs for our sort of 13, 14, 14 up to 18 around the clubs, which we'll go into probably in a bit more depth later on. And my job there is to share what we do internationally and where we want the game to go from like a hockey perspective and a performance perspective. So I'll spend some time doing my work with the TAs. The other bit of my job is around more coach development with the England age group coaches and ensuring that they've got opportunities to develop themselves and helping to kind of manage and steer that. In terms of my under 18 head coach role, again, it's about working upwards with John. So I'll spend time with John helping shape where we want to take the direction of travel from a hockey perspective, but also how we look to transition players from 16s, 18s, and then 18s into 21s. And now at the moment, we'll even have the odd player that might do some training with the senior program. So actually, again, being connected with Zach and the coaches there and knowing what they are looking for forms like a sort of minor bit of what I need to do. And it will be about managing the under 16 boys hockey direction and making sure that we are as aligned as possible. And I think that's been a big piece of work for us over the last year, 2 years, to make sure that we are as aligned as possible, whilst also making sure that the players have slightly different experiences. So it's not the same each time they go into a different environment. So making sure we have a really good understanding of how we play the game, what we want the players to look like, and making sure that we are communicating between the different teams to enable as smooth a transition of players as possible. So that kind of makes up the three parts of my job. My job's a full-time role as well. Really privileged to be able to spend time in a full-time capacity to sort of in and around the England teams. And I've been fortunate the last 6 months to spend a bit of time helping the seniors and understanding what that looks like in a coaching capacity while they've been in a recruitment phase. So yeah,
Yeah.
between myself and John, we've probably coached every boys team that's around. So yeah, quite enjoyable, but quite busy at the same time.
No, exactly. And here we've got Jordan Glover. So, hi, gentlemen. What do you find to be the biggest challenges with athletes performing consistently, and how do you respond to this challenge?
Yeah,
I'm happy to pick
thanks.
that up to start with, John.
Yeah, John, good.
It's actually quite an interesting topic because we've recently just done our European selection. And one of the things I've talked to the athletes about that maybe haven't been picked is around the level of consistency that they bring week in, week out to training and match play environments. So um, we've got a squad of around 30 players, and they're all highly talented players. But it's the consistency with which they can deliver their game and our game as a team, which will set apart the 18, 19, 20 that get picked for major championships and the ones that go in the squad. And probably lends itself, John, to the IDP conversation that we might want to share, is that all our players will have an IDP, so a individual development plan, which is something which is shared between coaching staff, players, and the other players, the other stakeholders that they work with, and that is one of the things which we use to help shape what their development looks like. And it's shared. We try and get the athletes to own it, so they're able to talk towards and say what is on that plan, and then we know what they're working on from a super strength perspective, and also a focus areas improvement. So getting them to chip away at those bits and getting them to understand what their strengths are helps with consistency because they know what they can go to at the same time. And that is then probably coupled with them understanding our game, how we play the game, and able to deliver that. What do you think, John? And anything else on that?
Yeah, it's a really It's a really interesting one. I think particularly with young players, consistency. I mean, we talk about the word consistency all the time. I think there are a few different types of consistency. So certainly with our group, we talk a lot about the consistency of their performance behaviors. So an example of that would be like from week to week, how diligently they're following their S&C program, and they're doing all the technical training they need to do, and they're eating well and stuff like that. And I think it, to kind of generalize with young players, it's very easy for them to do things very well one week and then not so well the next week. And I think the very best players are the ones that can just do it week after week after week. So that's something we really try and encourage, and we do that by, I say simple things. It's not simple, because if it was simple, everyone would do them. But stuff like planning their weeks out so they know when they're supposed to be training, and when they're supposed to be doing their S&C sessions, so they're not kind of making it up as they go along on a kind of day-to-day basis. I think more specifically from a hockey point of view, sometimes if you have skills that are like very, very like inconsistent skills, that might work once, but if you did it again against another defender, for example, they might not work. Then like by their very nature, you're going to be quite an inconsistent player. So trying to kind of coach players' skills that are consistent and repeatable, I think, is really important as well. One of my one coach I very much looked up to, as when I was playing, had a saying that the best players have the best basics. And definitely, as I've grown as a coach and got more experience, you definitely see that the what I take that to mean is the best players have skills that work again and again and again, and they can just repeat it and repeat it. So yeah, I would say consistency is a big thing we try and push.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it's also interesting. Sorry, Ernst, around that is we obviously have players that come to us from an under-16 environment, where a lot of some of those things that John talks about, planning their week, getting themselves from A to B, knowing what they're doing and when, will be curated by their parents, because obviously they're 14, 15, and then just getting into 16. And then they come to us, and part of my job is to help get them to the point where when they get to the EDP, that they're fully aware that they're in control of a lot of those things, as opposed to relying on mum and dad and like guardians to do those things for them. So we have quite a challenging couple of years where we kind of pick them up where they've been heavily led by their parents, and try and get them further down the line, so that when they get to John, they're able to take on those things themselves. And that is a message that we would give at the very beginning of a cycle, to say this is where you probably are and where we want to get you. And some will be better at it than others, and generally the better players, the more consistent players, will probably accelerate from mum and dad doing everything to them doing everything. They will probably accelerate through that quite a lot. Not all of them, but a lot of them will. And their ability to learn quickly and adapt again will stands them apart from those that don't. And again, that's another indicator of kind of the high potential athletes are the ones that are able to adapt quicker than others, which means they can then take their game on further. So
I
What are
think that's
some
one
of
of
the
the challenges.
go?
Sorry, Ernst. I was just going
No,
to
no,
say,
go.
I think that's one of the challenges with not seeing the players all the time, is you're trying to influence when they're away from you as well. So when you're on a training camp or at a tournament, you've got a pretty regimented schedule. The consistency of their behaviors and stuff like that tends to be pretty good. It's trying to influence them on a week-to-week basis when they're away at school or university, or with their clubs, which is quite challenging.
What are some of the challenges? Do you see this consistently more as a challenge in the younger teams, like the under 16s, who are really new to the international level of training? And do you see considerable improvement then when they reach you, John, in the under 21s? Or is it still just a matter of the mental age that is not there yet to be as consistent as we want them to be when they make the move to a senior level.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean,
I think
we might get onto this, but I think England. Sorry, Mark. I think
no, you carry on.
England's quite unique in terms of its in terms of I think in, for example, Germany, Holland, Belgium, it's very club centered in terms of where the players come from and their pathway. In England, it's a lot more complex. So you have school hockey, you have university hockey, you have some players playing in clubs. There's a lot of different stakeholders to manage. Now, from my point of view, a lot of our under 21 players, not all of them, because some are in our Premier League clubs, but a lot of the under 21 players are at our top sporting universities, and that they will play for the universities in their university competition, but the universities are also effectively their clubs. And one of the things you hear all the time with the university coaches is, like, for example, that their team will play really well against the top teams, and then the next week they'll go and lose to the bottom team. So the consistency of their performances is just like so up and down. So yeah, I would say by the time they get to me, it is better, but I would definitely consistency is a real challenge still when they get to me.
Mark, anything to add there?
I think, yeah, I think it's, again, John's alluded to it. It's a complex beast. The kind of the talent systems from like 13, 14 up to 18, and that there are many stakeholders involved in a young player in England. So there's some players will have two clubs. They'll have a junior club, an adult club. They'll have high performing sort of school programs that are designed to really push and challenge the players. And I think, I'm not saying any are good or any are bad or any is indifferent. The biggest thing for us is there's just so many different environments for them to be in, which can be a positive at times, because it means they get quite a broad hockey diet, so to speak. They get lots of input from lots of different people, and all the experiences can be quite different. The strength overplayed in that context will be that sometimes they can get lots and lots of different messages. And I think if you put yourself in the shoes of a 13, 14, 15 year old, you can have quite a lot of things coming in which you have to balance out. And then you then layer on academic pressures. Some play other sports, have other interests, for example, music, etc. And suddenly life can be quite challenging for a young player in England. And I think there are some positives to that. I think there's the multi-sport aspect that you get from being in a school environment, which is brilliant, because there are some good traits that come into that. But then there can just be, yeah, quite a lot of mixed messages. So part of my job and my role is to try and get some of the direction out and share that with school and club and talent academy coaches. So they actually, some of our athletes will have three like main environments, and then you add in an England environment as well. Um, so yeah, it's interesting, and there's no simple way of solving these not problems, but solving these different stakeholders that you need to manage, and it's about trying to work with them. Sometimes people don't want to be worked with, and sometimes people are really keen. So you just got to try and navigate that path as you go along. So and I think that, again, I think consistency can then be different in an England capacity, because they'll have been doing different things in different programs and different teams, and then they come into ours and we ask them to do something, and then they go back to another, and that's where we can get fluctuation. We tend to, from April onwards, then start to see a bit more leveling out of consistency in the 16s and the 18s, because fundamentally they'll spend the majority of their time in environments that we're managing and leading. So you then get quite a nice trajectory of development over that period. And I think, yeah, we just have to balance and manage that through the hockey season. And then the other bit is just around supporting them to understand their technical skills that they need to be spending time on in their own environments, and really working with players to understand that doing that training themselves and owning that is really important. so that when they come to the different environments they're in, whether it's school, club, international, that they know that, as John said, they've got some really sound basics that stand up under pressure, and they understand how to do things as opposed to just doing them. And I think helping them with that again is quite important. And we do work around that. The IDP and the coaching staff are quite invested in helping with that side of things.
John, you alluded already a little bit earlier to the differences between your guys' setup in England and GB and the continent, the Belgians, the Dutch, the Germans, where we don't have that school environment as well. So we have players who are in a club, and I think that one of the advantages of that, the moment that you have international level players, youngsters still, but reaching that age where they can play at the first team level in their club, they are surrounded by more experienced players. And am I right that this makes a difference compared to the ones in England or GB that maybe are in the university level where they will have some older players, but not the really older experienced players with all that attitude and mental strongness. Is that something that plays a role as well?
Yeah, it's a really fascinating topic. Something we talk about talk about a lot. I think the interesting thing in England is the universities that the players play at. So most of the universities, not all of them, certainly on the girls side, but most of them are in the Division 1, so the level below the Premier Division. So the standard the players are playing at is not the highest level in the country. One of the big things about the universities is they are better funded, and their facilities are absolutely brilliant. So actually, compared to we've got some really good clubs in England facility wise as well, but some of the university facilities and the support they get in terms of a full-time coach, physio, S&C, they get access to gyms, stuff like that is really, really good. So whenever people have this kind of debate in England, it's always the kind of debate between the quality of the hockey they'll play at a higher level and, as you said, actually the advantage of playing with more experienced players, like playing with the internationals. So very few of our under-21s, if they're not in clubs, will play with any of our senior internationals because they're not at the clubs. But what they have got as an advantage is they've got amazing facilities, support services, and full-time coaches. So yeah, so it's a real debate. I guess there are definitely advantages of the club way, and there are definitely some big strengths of universities as well.
Yeah. Mark, are you seeing the same thing?
There are some excellent sort of school programs, and again, a lot of our full-time coaching workforces are situated within schools and universities. So then you will then see, obviously, those programs like flourish. I just think the biggest thing for us is just around just the sheer volume of different environments that they're in, which makes life challenging. So there are loads of pros to it, and then there will always be disadvantages. So I think our job is to navigate that. I think the probably bit for us to the way in which we try and cope around that, and something that John's done well over the last 2 to 3 years, is ensuring his under-21 players get more access and stretch in the senior environment. Is it worth just sharing kind of some of the things you've done, John, to try and help them get some role models and additional opportunity?
Yeah, cheers, Mark. I think I think how we work across the programs is really, 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 really good. I think we're all quite lucky. We've all worked together a fair while, and we've got very good relationships and stuff. You hear some horror stories in the past about coaches not talking to each other and not sharing stuff. But I think how me and Mark would talk, all the time about being consistent with our hockey messages, and just not just on the pitch, on and off the pitch. So that's really good, and the same applies with the senior stuff. So very, very good relationship with the senior coaches, and we share, and we know what everyone's doing. So what our best players in the EDP are, what we do is we go through I would go through the calendar with the senior coach, and we'd pick out good opportunities for them to go into Bisham Abbey where the seniors train, and they get a chance to train with them. So it might be 1 or 2 days, and they might get that opportunity, 2 or 3 times every 6 months. And if the players who are closer to transitioning to the senior team are 18s, who's a very high potential player, has just been in, I think, once so far, just to kind of get that first flavour of senior hockey and stretch. So that's really good. I think one thing I'm really actually proud of, sitting kind of in the middle of the programs, if you like, is just how very closely we work together. And on the other side of it, Mark's best under 18s will come into the EDP. They'll get some stretch, they'll get some experience, then they'll go back down to the 18s. So there's a really nice kind of go up for a bit of stretch, and then go back down into your own age group when it's appropriate.
Mhm, mhm. How do you
Yeah.
deal with the players that leave your program, John, as under 21s, but are not yet ready for the national seniors team, but still they remain ambitious. They still have those hopes and could still maybe develop. What are possible ways to keep reinforcing those kind of players?
Yeah, well, I think this is actually one of the beauties of our elite development program, is we don't kind of cut it off at under 21. So
Hmm.
we will always have not loads, but we will always have kind of, if I was to put a number on it, up to 5 players who are under
Okay.
22, under 23. Yeah, in the past we've actually had some Great Britain players who went to the last Olympics who were still in the EDP at like under 25. So it's a great way of actually, we very deliberately, when we set the EDP up, didn't want to put any unnecessary kind of like boundaries on it in
Hmm.
terms of excluding players. So yeah, so there's definitely a good system to keep them involved, and that combined with club hockey and is a really good combination.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, we've got a question here
And
from the yeah, Mark, go.
yeah, sorry, yeah, I think there's also, we have quite an open system in that John will go out to the club coaches each year to say, actually, have you got any players who you think are um, worth us having given them an open trial? So John will do that, and I think we also have that within the age groups. We have our talent academies, which we would say are our priority environments, and the players will go to an end of season talent academy cup where we'll assess them there. But there then are also open assessment days where any players that aren't involved in talent academies can be nominated by a club or school coach. They'll give them a reference, and then the England age group staff will come and assess them, so that we hopefully don't miss anybody. Hockey's relatively small world. We're not necessarily going to have people like a Jamie Vardy that's playing a lower league in football and suddenly become a world beater. But at the same time, there are definitely players that will be out there that might not have access to a talent academy, don't think that it's not right for them,
Hmm.
or live too far away, etc. That we still want to make sure we've got an open door policy, and the same with us. If the players that aren't necessarily picked for a European Championships this summer, I'll still have a conversation with John and say, actually, that might not be now, but let's put them in the club trial environment so we can see them 6 months, 8 months down the line. Because
Hmm.
again, their trajectory might improve and change. And we've had players that didn't make an under 18 program that would then go into an EDP and sort of sit in that program and actually do quite well in there, just because
Hmm.
at the different selection points, it might not be right for those players. And I think the beauty or the evolution of our system is that it's a lot more open. You can come in, you can come out, you can come in, you can come out, as opposed to maybe what it might have been in previous years, regimes, etc. Whereas once you're out at this point, then it's quite tough to get back in. Whereas we'd rather include people, make errors including them, than make errors excluding them. So yeah, that's how we try and go about it.
Okay. Let's go back to a question from the audience here. KP2704, beautiful name. Coaches can feel imposter syndrome or worry if what they are doing is the right thing and if it's working. So the time pressure that you have to develop players can be intense. Have you experienced this? And then let me add to it. How do you deal with that? John, maybe start with you.
Yeah, don't mind having it. Yeah, it's a really good question. So particularly, so personally, I got the job with GB in England when I was very young, so I was only 33. So yeah, you definitely feel like you need to prove yourself, I guess, in some ways, and yeah, you're constantly trying to do a good job and actually prove your methods work and stuff like that. I think, I mean, like once you get perhaps a little bit of success and you get a bit older and you get a bit more confident, I think that all feels a lot more comfortable. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that in terms of actually, particularly when you're maybe a young coach or an inexperienced coach, feeling a little bit of pressure that your methods might not be right. And I actually think, particularly when you start coaching maybe some big talents, or maybe players with a little bit of ego, and some difficult players, I think actually when I look around at some really successful coaches, I think the best coaches are actually coaches who are really confident to coach how they like what they believe, and actually not change the way they coach too much, but like based on trying to please difficult players, if you like. So yeah, I think there are some really good examples of that around world hockey at the moment, in terms of coaches who've come in and been really strong with what they believe, and they've been really successful. I think as you get higher and higher, actually just like having the confidence to coach, if you like, is half the battle, really. And obviously, in that you've got to have a good foundation of knowledge, and you've got to, obviously know what you're doing with your coaching, and work hard to be as good a coach as you can be. But once you do have that knowledge, and you do have some beliefs, it's having the confidence to put them into practice is, yeah, it sounds easy saying it on a podcast, but it's not easy. It really isn't easy. But having that confidence is what will make you a really good coach.
Mark?
Anything on that, Mark?
I think, yeah, I'm just reflecting on. Obviously, I spent some time with the seniors over the last 6 months, and the first camp was a trip to Argentina. Now, I've pretty much coached every single one of those players in 16s or 18s or 21s, but still, you then go into this environment and you think, crikey, right, what am I going to do here? And I was just sat down at breakfast, and Jack Waller, one of the senior lads, came and sat next to me, and I'd not seen him for ages. And he actually just gave me a bit of advice. He says, you be yourself, coach how you want to coach, and be yourself. Obviously, you're coaching within the framework of how the team plays, but it was just a dead nice bit of advice. And he's obviously one of the top players, but he's a great character as well. But that was really good advice from him, and I just thought, right, fine, we'll just crack on. But the other bit was, I think it does take your time to understand who you are, how you coach, and also you do need some experience of making errors, getting things wrong, getting things right, to then go, right, this is kind of who I am and how I coach. What we don't want, particularly in England, is everybody coaching exactly the same way, trying to be exactly the same sort of person, because that becomes quite boring for the players. There are obviously values and the way in which you coach and ethics that are important, which everyone needs to be working to. But we want individuals with personality coaching the players. We don't want 300,000 different robots all doing the same thing and saying it in the same way and coaching in the same manner. We want points of difference and we want different personalities because that makes the game interesting for the players. So, but I think you understanding yourself and how you coach and what works for you, but being able to adapt your style where it's required to meet the needs of other players. Because conversely, all the players aren't. Every player is not the same. So all those little things that I've just talked about, you stick into the melting pot. Just take a bit of time, and you need to be thinking about these things to enable you to then go, right, did that work? Did it not work? How do I evolve myself whilst being, well, the term is authentic to you? And I think certainly I reflect on the start of my international coaching journey to where I am now. Is there was a period of time where I was trying to coach how people wanted me to coach, and there were some benefits in that, and there were some good bits that I took from it. But now I'm a bit like, well, actually, kind of based on my experience and who I am, this is how I'm going to try and coach, and I'll try and evolve and adapt to meet the needs of players as I go along. But if you spend too much time trying to be somebody else, you'll get caught out because you won't essentially be who you are, and it can be quite tiring trying to be something that you're not. So yeah, I think what it does take experience. It does take time to understand that, which is why you need to kind of do your time in the game as well. You need to go and coach some club teams, make some errors, be in relegation battles, be in promotion battles, to understand how you do what you do, and you've got to make as many errors as you do positive actions. You just hope that it kind of works out in the end as you go along.
No, exactly.
Can I just
Uh,
add to that? Add
yep.
to that quickly. Sorry, Ants, can I just add to that really quickly? I think it's just as Mark was speaking there, like when I was a young coach, I think I had a like playing background behind me, so I was an international with Great Britain and England. And I think when you have a playing background, it gives you a certain amount of confidence with your coaching just through your playing. And personally, I have an awful lot of respect. I think there are some brilliant coaches who haven't got a playing background, but like an international playing background behind them, and I have an awful lot of respect for them because I can't put myself in their shoes, but I can imagine without that initial confidence you get from having played, that must feel, I guess, a lot more difficult. And I think it makes as I say, there's some brilliant coaches without a playing background behind them, but I've got a lot of respect for them because I can imagine that first step on a journey is a lot harder if you don't have that, perhaps that confidence from having a playing background behind you.
Exactly. A new question from Jordan again, Jordan Glover. How do you integrate the trends of international hockey into the priorities for the junior men from a tactical and a tactical perspective, and both balancing their IDP time and preparing them for the senior team? That's a lot of questions. John.
Yes, question. So I guess we have two main goals with EDP and under 21s really. One is to develop players for the senior team, and the other one is to try and make our junior teams really successful. So actually trying to make sure you're very up to date with the trends of international hockey is a big part of what we do. And actually, from my experience, I think it's very similar to what's going on at the senior level. So an example of that would be at the senior level, probably since the last World Cup, you're starting to see a fair few teams play a zone in deep defense, and exactly the same's happening in junior hockey as well. So there's an awful lot you can learn from what the senior teams are doing to attack that, for example, that you can try and integrate into the junior stuff. And I think that's obviously really important because once the junior players then step up, they need to have that knowledge and those skills to try and adapt to the latest trends. And in terms of their IDP, their individual development plan, part and parcel of that will be related to the trends. So an example of that might be if you've got a fullback and you're going through their IDPs, one of the things you might talk about as an example is developing their like aerial ball, their high ball, to try and have a good high ball threat against the zones, as an example. So it's definitely all related.
Mm-hmm. Mark?
Yeah, to echo John's points, I think it's important that the coaches are aware, and we are aware of what's going on in the senior international game, because what tends to happen is the junior ages then starts to follow. I think with under 18s it can be slightly different, and under 16s, in that we're still wanting to formulate the fundamentals for the players. So, and the players, even in England age group environment, will come, the bandwidth between number 1 to 30 can be quite big. So we're trying to, well, a number of things. We're obviously looking, how can we transition high potential players up quickly into EDP so they continue to get stretch, whilst also ensuring they play in our environment to make sure that they develop leadership skills and the ability to dominate games. So what you don't want is a player that's always like having to graft and work hard and constantly on the edge of performance. We also want to provide opportunities for them to play with us and to lead and to take the game on, and to play in those pressure environments. And with the pressure being that they have to perform at the top of their game. But we also then have players who we're thinking, we'll have some year young under 17s in our program who are in a very different position to the under 18s, the proper under 18s. So we then have to balance what they're working on to prepare them to perform well, but also thinking about, well, they need these bits into the game, they need these bits into the game. And the other bit is also allowing them to push the game on themselves as 18s, 16, 17-year-olds, because they're seeing different things and doing different
Yes.
things that maybe the senior players do. So you've got to allow them that bit of bandwidth. But the biggest thing for us that we see is just really helping to provide the fundamentals for them. And then where we see their real high potential players, we make sure we get those moments where they can be stretched. And I think we try and do that, or try and share that with them when they're out in their other environments as well, is because generally they'll be the best player, and sometimes they may play in games that they don't necessarily have to really try in. So it's having a conversation with them to help them to frame what are you working on in these particular games. You might want to really go, right, I can't do this skill, I'm going to try and do this skill and try and work on these skills and these moments. Or I'm working on actually how I can communicate better with players, because actually I need to lead and develop some of those skills. So excuse me. So I think that's kind of how we do it in an 18s and a 16s. It's slightly different. When they start to get into John's program, it's really then about readying them to go and for the next step in seniors. But the big thing that John alluded to that we're also really passionate about is it's also about teaching them to how to win, because what we want is our best high potential players playing in the most high potential games, so that then when they go into an under 21, it's not, all right, we're playing in a semi final, that they've never experienced that before. And I think that's where the success of the EDP has been of late. And it's no coincidence that the group of players that are now playing in the senior program have played in semi-finals and finals of loads of tournaments. And there's some anecdotal comments. I think Zach might have said, actually, when the seniors were in a semi-final, he'd commented to some of the other lads, well, I've been in a final and semi-final at under 21s, so this is new to him. And then it just helped with him have that calmness to be able to go, right, I'm going to put my game out there, as opposed to being overawed by the situation. And I think that's a real credit to where the EDP has been, and on the under 21s, that they have won successive Sutton and Joe Hawes. They've got to semi-finals and finals of European under 21 competitions. So those players have those experiences prior to going into an Olympic program, and then we start to see now a senior environment that they've had those experiences.
Yeah,
Um,
just
yeah.
really good. Sorry, that's a really good points from Mark. I think perhaps in the past we were guilty of only talking about development and not enough about winning. And I think definitely we try and do a good job with both now. I think we love our football in England, and I think we've learned some good lessons from the England football team. I don't think we haven't won anything with the senior England football team yet, but they've started getting a lot better. They get into finals, and if you actually look at their junior teams, they have won stuff. And all the players that have made the England football team much better than they were 10 years ago. have all grown up together, and they've won the Junior World Cups in football and the Junior Europeans. I think the under-21 England football teams just made the under-21 Euros final again, and that's definitely had a knock-on effect with them actually learning to win, I think. So that's definitely something we think's important.
A completely different question now from Tin Matkovic, coach in Berlin. So clubs and universities may have bigger budgets, but if the central program is where players spend most of their time, shouldn't that set the highest standards? And what would you improve in your central programs to make it a truly world-class program? Mark, maybe start with you.
I think, probably terminology, you have to be quite careful here, because I think when Tim talks about central program, I think about the GB senior program.
Yeah.
So it's whether, so if I talk about national program and under 18s, I think we try and live by some sort of world-class principles, whether that is on and off the pitch. And I think the other thing that the England age group program, which is a point of difference from club, school, university, etc., is the access to play the best v best at their age group around the world. So I think that is the point of difference. I think if the players were to reflect on their experience in under 18, under 16, even under 21, the majority would say that like it is the next level, whether that is the preparation that goes into preparing the team for competition, the level of detail, tactical insight that we would go into, I think would be very different, and would be a point of difference. So yeah, obviously we always want, we're a government funded program, which is also part funded by parental contributions in the 16s and 18s. So there's only, at the current moment in time, money can only go so far, and our funding has remained the same for the last 10 years. But obviously the money's going like that, but obviously the cost is going up. So I think there's only ever a tipping point. But what we do bring is expertise, and the access to the other nations, which really does allow it to be world stage events, if that makes sense. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, in terms of central program, obviously, I would think of that as the senior program, which I think it does set the high standards. I think it is, yeah, it's been a real point of difference for us. But
Yeah, John, anything that you would like to improve in your program?
So I think we're really lucky to have a really well-funded program, and I think it is a brilliant program. So it's not that you're always looking to improve your program for any way to improve it. So I would say that the kind of next step for us would be more time with the players, but we have a very full-on schedule anyway. So, I think in some countries, I'm not sure exactly, but India, for example, I think they get to spend an awful lot of time with their young players. So that would be one thing. That's like a real like massive change though. I'm not sure that's anything that's in the pipeline to happen soon, because the players have got like busy lives outside of their hockey as well. They're either at university or they're working and stuff like that. So yeah, there's the central program is very, very world class. So I wouldn't say that there's too much I'd look to change.
What do you like about possibly other central programs, like maybe the Australian Institute of Sport? And are you maybe jealous of maybe the possibilities of smaller countries like Belgium, who have a beautiful center of excellence, where all the players come together on a regular basis from all age categories? Is that something that yeah, could even improve your program?
I think certainly when we look at somewhere like Belgium, the travel, being able to get the national squad together so easily, that's something that would definitely make things easier. So a training day for us, you can so as an example for the EDP, if we have a training day at Bisham Abbey, we can't really expect the Scottish players to come to it because it's just so far. You know, they have to fly down, they have to fly back. So there's some logistics that make things definitely difficult, and also some of the quality of the clubs in Belgium, Germany, and Holland. You know, you go to yeah, some of the amazing clubs and the facilities, and also the setup for the juniors there. So you've been to some clubs in Europe, and you see the parents sat up in the bar having a coffee, watching the kids train. And my little lads just started playing hockey, and we play at a school pitch. There's no facilities. It's you know it's totally different from some of the amazing stuff I see in Europe, and it definitely makes me think in terms of the impact. So my little lad is 7, and I do often think about if he was at a club that had those amazing facilities, and if you kind of like, if that was repeated many times over with all the juniors in England, what an impact that would have in terms of not just the quality of player, but the how many players you'd keep in the sport as well, which personally I find really interesting.
Talking about different environments, let's first say this one. Tin says, apologies for the terminology. Thanks a million for the answer. But let's talk about a completely different environment. So I've got a question here from Collins Wanjala. And if I remember right, Collins, you are from Kenya. I'm in an environment where hockey is not really structured. So not many children get the opportunity to access long-term development programs. So if you were to start a program here, how would you do it? Mark.
I'd keep it simple, and I would think about not trying to go too big too soon. So I'd find a nucleus of players. I'd understand what I think are going to be the key things for this particular group of players to work on, and then I'd be steadfast in ensuring that I've got consistency with my delivery, and I've got good connections with the players. I think that's dead simple. I think my observations when I'm out and about in the different talent academies is that sometimes coaches are trying to do too many things too often, and they lose sight of some of the core fundamentals that players need to have, and trying to figure out different ways to support them to be good at those. And they can be too inconsistent in their coaching approach or their design, and it can be changed, and players can constantly just feel a bit like there's quite a lot going on. So I think my things would be to find your group, understand the group, be connected to them, so build some good relationships, and then really keep it simple with the what and how you coach them, so that they can have some consistency in messaging and delivery over a period of time. And then it's about trying to find opportunities for them to test those skills so that they can enjoy playing some match play opportunities. But again, keeping things pretty simple. I think my reflection from when I first started coaching England to now is that I was trying to do too much, trying to ram loads of things in, loads of different ideas, and actually that can be quite confusing for players. Now it's about less is more, but going to greater depth each time we try and revisit those topics, so that they have a deeper understanding of a smaller set of outcomes, if that makes sense. Hopefully not waffling too much.
John, I'll let you continue waffling then. How would you how would you set up a long-term development program in that case?
I think getting the basics in place is a really important start. So make sure you've got a good facility, make sure they've got the right equipment, make sure you've got the right staff in place in the various roles. and then like make it really fun, make it really enjoyable. Probably loads of fun games, and try and get everyone engaged in it really early. And it obviously depends what type of players you're dealing with in terms of what content you'd aim at them. But just it sounds a bit stupid, but I'd like have a good plan, like try and have a roadmap to where you want to go to with the program, rather than just just winging it a bit and making it up as you go along. Just try and put some good time into preparation, so actually when you actually try and unveil your program and you get it running, you've got a really good plan to kind of go to.
Then completely. I hope that answered the question, Collins. If not, just let us know in the comments here. The both of you are constantly involved with player selection. One of the big questions that we usually then get is would you pick a player with better skills or with a better mindset, and why? Mark.
I don't think it's as simple as just that, to be honest. I think it's a combination of a number of factors that you take into account. Mindset's important. I think we spend quite a lot of time helping to shape what that might look like, and how it underpins what you do. Because yeah, you can have all the best skills in the world, but if you're kind of don't have the right attitude, your ability to train, your how you might cope under pressure, I think then your skills will fall down. But the two are fully intertwined. So it's trying to take a picture when we're looking at selection around a number of things, not just selecting on one facet of the game, if that makes sense. A bit of a cop out there for me, I think. Maybe
John, taking
John
it
will
to
pick
you
one.
then. Yeah, taking it to you then, John.
It's
And let's
a
just say that
fascinating question.
Mark has brought you a player with amazing skills, but he hasn't been able to fix that mindset yet. Would you continue with a player like that?
I think it depends on the level of where they are. So I think I think the really interesting thing is, and I'm generalizing, but like often you'll see the most highest potential skillful players are not the ones with the best mindset, and the players with like incredible mindsets do not have the best skills, and that's probably because they've to actually get to that level, the players with maybe less potential, less talent, have had to have an incredible mindset to get to that level. So you do see, in my experience, you do see this an awful lot. You see some cracking characters and some really, really strong personalities who are not technically the best players. I don't think it is as easy as saying you pick mindset over skill. I think there gets a point where if the skillful player has such a bad mindset, then they become so kind of negative to the team, then you wouldn't pick them. At the same point, if someone's got an incredible character and mindset, but technically they're really, really poor hockey player, and for example, they turn the ball over a lot and it's causing a lot of counter attacks to the other team, then even though you have an awful lot of time for great character, then you wouldn't pick them. So it has to be somewhere in the middle. Obviously, if you have someone with a cracking mindset and they're a brilliant player, it's the easiest decision in the world. But as we all know, very rarely does that happen. But yeah, I think there's a middle ground where you would pick them, but at either end there has to be a level where either that maybe they're too negative for the team, even though they are really skillful, or they're just not a good enough player. And obviously, you try your utmost to either make the player who's not technically good enough as much better, so they are good enough to be selected, and you try incredibly hard to make the skillful player have a better attitude or a better mindset. But sometimes it is really difficult.
I think
Yeah.
sorry, and so I think in the 16s, 18s, it's also about taking them on the journey to understand some of that, because they don't necessarily they won't have come up against challenge adversity from a on pitch perspective. They won't have been asked to commit to this volume of additional training, like doing your homework around on huddle, looking at the videos that we put up about technical tactical stuff. So I think it's about us in a age group environment trying to help them to understand what those mindset bits are, and recognizing the ones that are flying and continue to let them evolve. But yeah, we can't be deselecting people at kind of our age, because at times they don't know what they don't know. So it's about trying to help them understand that, so they've got
Yeah.
a better self-awareness of it.
Yeah. The both of you have been in the business of developing that youth generation to senior level, competitive level for a long time. So you've seen a switch in generations, and we hear a lot about yeah, Gen Z and the difficulty of the current youth generation. I know that I'm talking like a very old man in this case, but what are some of the challenges that you've noticed in throughout the years and leading up to the current generation, and how do you deal with that, John?
Do you want me to take that one? Yeah, really is really good question. So obviously, like phones are a massive thing. I think for team dynamics and like how people interact. Like modern day phones are amazing, aren't they? In terms of what they could do, and the information, like in the palm of your hands. But in a team dynamic, they're a nightmare as well. So like one rule we introduced quite a long time ago now was we don't have any phones when we're having team meals. And even just that one simple little standard, it just makes such an incredible difference. Because if you and I see teams, if you just allow the young players to like be on their phones, they will be on their phones like whenever they can be. If you're at an airport, you'll see the players, they'll just be sat around, they won't be talking to each other, they'll be staring at, whichever social media they're on or stuff like that. So I think in my own view, you do have to be a bit proactive with how you deal with it. Otherwise, you will just have a team that's definitely less sociable and less communicating with each other than you would have had 10, 15 years ago. On the flip side, like we'll send out to all our players a clip of the week every week, so they'll get it on their phones, they'll be able to watch it and stuff like that. So I think it would be amiss to like say it's all bad.
No.
And I guess that's one of the real challenges with it is a real balance, isn't it? There's good bits, there's bad bits. I would say away from the kind of modern day like phones and attention span and that kind of conversation. I think one big change I've seen over the last decade, particularly with our players, is 10 years ago, physically our players were really like really immature. So probably the biggest thing that stopped them transitioning quickly to the senior team was like they'd never seen a gym in their lives. They were just nowhere near athletic enough to go into the seniors. And I think now it would definitely be more a technical thing. So it's all about is their hockey good enough really? So I think actually the S&C and the so that's strength and conditioning and the amount they do in the gym with their coaches now is actually really impressive. So that's definitely something I've seen change.
Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's for the players that we deal with, there's just so much more they can do. So they want to, be a top level drum player, drummer, they want to play for England, they want to go to Uganda to help and do a school trip there. And there's just so much for them that it's trying to help them understand that when they get to 18, that you then, in order to get good at something, you have to really give yourself to that. So I think it's helping them understand that sometimes it might not be for them. But yeah, the big thing I've felt or noticed now versus kind of when did I start? 2011. That there's just so many more things on offer for them, and so many more distractions. And I think it's trying to help them understand that, particularly now, this sort of phase, there's end of school leaving dues that are coming up against where we'll have an international camp, and it's actually, you say you want to be an England player, but kind of do you? So it's just trying to help them understand what is for them and what isn't. So I think that'll be one thing. I think the other bit for them is that they want to be part of that learning experience. So they don't just want to be told what to do. They want to know why they're doing what they're doing. They want to help shape what they're doing. And I think that can be a challenge. It can be a positive, but can also be a challenge because at the same time, none of them or some of them haven't experienced international hockey before, so they don't know what they don't know. So it's trying to help blend their experiences that they bring to the environment, whilst also steering them along the journey to help them better understand what is required and what is needed. So if you then couple those two bits together, it can be quite challenging. Um, so how we go about doing that, we look to try and scaffold how they input into what we're doing. So giving them choice around certain things as opposed to saying it being completely like open to them. So give them options, opportunities. We try and get the messaging right around helping them to understand what being a world-class athlete will look like when you're a senior, and to how they then start to build some of those building blocks now. And we also are aware of the fact that there are other things that they might do, and we try and leverage around. It's about communicating those things with us and getting better at that, so we have a greater understanding of what they're doing. For example, don't message me on a Friday night to say I've got an exam on Monday, I can't come to the camp. So some of those basics, we totally get that you've got exams, but you have to manage a message and get yourself planned out accordingly so that we know what's going on and we can help you with that. So I think, yeah, there will be some of the things that we try and use to mitigate. Plus, some of the bits that John talked about are really relevant for us in our context as well.
A question from KP2704 again. So having a critical friend as a coach to ask you those hard and reflective questions can be a positive, obviously, for a coach. Not only for players, but especially for a coach. So is there an example that you can share of a conversation or a person that helped you, or perhaps a conversation between the both of you? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I can't immediately think of one between me and Mark, but our under-21s were playing a series against France over the last few days, and I was two assistant coaches, and yeah, we had a very good debate about we were going to try out a new press or a slightly tweak with our press. And I kind of saw the press working one way, and the other assistant coach saw it working a different way, and we had a good discussion about it. I would say, I'm quite lucky with my coaching team. It was just a very good. We didn't agree, but it was a good discussion, and then in the end, we managed to come to a good solution. So being able to definitely in that situation for me, the coach just agreeing with me was not what I needed at that time. So actually having some challenge and some debate is really important. I think having close enough relationships that you trust each other to be able to to be honest is really important. So actually. So Mark's the under-18 coach, his team were about to play in the under-18 Euros. We had a few injuries against France for our last match. So one of the things I was contemplating doing was potentially calling up one of the under-18 players for the match. And me and Mark had to have a difficult conversation. Is totally the wrong way of putting it, but Mark was definitely challenging enough to say, no, this isn't the right thing at this time for the under-18s with the load they've got coming up and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really important to be able to both challenge but also be able to be challenged, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Mark, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll echo John's point. I think that having your coaching staff set up so that you don't have a load of yes men, as nice as it is for everybody to agree with you, like they do in the US. I don't think it necessarily is helpful at times. And at the same time, having coaches that are self-aware that they push for the right reasons as opposed to sort of ego driving. So I think setting your management teams up important. The other tact I would say is, well, two bits. There's having other coaches that you go to go and speak to about the game. I think is really important, whether that is technical, tactical, whether that is situations, advice. And I'm fortunate to have like a little group of coaches that I would pick up the phone, and at the same time they would pick up the phone to me. So, and again, someone who John knows well. So Quan Brown would be one of those people that I would go to, and he would phone me up as well and say, "What do you think?" And I know the same happens with John. So having a network of coaches who you trust, who fundamentally they don't want your job, they don't want, they just they're your friends and they want to help you get better, and you do the same for them. I think developing that little close knit group is really important. The other bit would be to go and see other sports. So I was fortunate for a number of years. I worked kind of as the critical friend in different sports as a coach developer, and I got as much out of going into those sports as they probably got out from me coming into theirs. But yeah, getting your head out of your own sport and into other sports, just seeing what they're doing. And I was fortunate to spend my time in loads of different Olympic development programs with different sports, and nicked and robbed and stole different ideas and things, and maybe thought, oh, I wouldn't do that. So actually, I won't do that in the future. So I think that was good. But also having somebody who is almost a mentor, who they can hold the mirror up and say, actually, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And I've got a couple of friends who I've worked with who I would go to from that context. So I think having all those bits together, but also having a bit of a personal plan. So when I go into a trip or a tournament, I will make a little list of bullet points. What am I working on? So what am I making sure I get right? What am I working on? So what do I want to push myself on to get better? Kind of how do I want to be perceived? So just a few little questions that I will make a note of, and then before a tournament or a trip, I'll just make some notes. It's not War and Peace. I don't share it with anybody, but at the end of the tournament or midway through or after each game, I go, right, did I achieve those bits? And I think, yeah, that's something I learned from John around actually having a bit of a almost like your little plan of just that focuses you, whether it's things you want to work on or whether it's things how you want to be, so that in the emotion and the heat of battle, sometimes you can stray from that, which is fine because that happens. But being able to recognize who and how you want to be is also important.
Yeah, Mark, you mentioned that you were lucky enough to participate in different Olympic programs and learn from different sports. Can you give us a concrete example of one thing that you took from another sport and implemented into your day-to-day work with hockey players?
Well, it's quite interesting. So my biggest bit was around its inconsistency and simplicity of what people do. So, for example, I spent a lot of time in Taekwondo. I had a number of coaches there that I worked with, and they were very much about setting up their technical practice so the players understood what they were working on and what they were getting better at, and they practiced it, and they were consistent through a cycle around that. And they then had their sort of little simulation matches that they'd set up so that they had some realism in their training. So actually, my reflection from that at a time, England hockey was kind of had a slightly different coaching direction, which had definitely loads of benefits too. But I came away from a lot of the Olympic programs around actually the brilliant basics, the fundamentals, and the fact that every coach in their different sports had a really understanding of what was required to enable players to do well. And I think for a hockey perspective, that is kind of where we are now around understanding that less is more, consistency is important, and going to greater depth on the basics is something that can really help players stand up in development environments. So yeah, it was quite interesting to see what that looks like in loads of different sports. So for example, in cycling, they have a really good understanding of power outputs, which is completely irrelevant to hockey, but the fact that they have a good understanding of those fundamental bits that help with performance, I think that was just nice to see across the different sports.
Yeah. John, for you as well, what have you learned from your experience watching other coaches in other sports?
Yeah, to think at Bisham Abbey we have a really good tennis academy, so it's kind of got a big tennis centre there as well as all the hockey facilities, and it always fascinates me watching their coaches just how detailed they are in terms of coaching the technique of the players. And I know hockey, I don't probably not just in Great Britain and England, probably all over Europe. We've been through quite a kind of a range of different coaching philosophies. So get it. So the game's the teacher, and everything can be learned through games. And when you're at Bisham Abbey watching that, it's so different. So in my own view, it's a balance between the two. But it definitely fascinated me watching just how incredibly technical the tennis coaches were. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah. Uh, John, as well, you are preparing now for yet another Junior World Cup coming up. Uh, what are some of the things that you do in this preparation leading up to that tournament? What are some of the expectations from the first world level tournament that those guys will be playing in? Or for some that will be the first, for some maybe a second one. Um, and do you see any new trends in international hockey that you think that will be important in that tournament as well?
Sorry, I think my little boy is knocking at the door.
No problem.
Yeah. So we've got a summer series. So we're actually playing Belgium in a few weeks' time, which should be really good. And then we've got a series against Ireland. And then the players will have a little bit of a break during the summer, and then we're really into our main prep. So we're really lucky. We're going to go to the Sultan of Johor Cup in October, which will be a really important part of our preparation. We'll go there as Great Britain, but a big important tournament for us, and then onto the World Cup. It's having a World Cup in December is really challenging, because you've obviously got league hockey, you've got universities. The boys are very, very busy, so actually making sure they arrive at the World Cup fresh is going to be like really, really important. But it's really exciting. England, to the best of my knowledge, have never won a medal at Junior World Cup. So of course every team will be going there trying to do really well. But yeah, we're really excited about it, and we're really aspiring to do as well as we possibly can.
Do you think that there will be some new tactical developments that you will be seeing there? We're seeing a lot more of the aerials, a lot more of the defensive setups that are different in international men's hockey. Will that trickle down to the Junior World Cup?
So
No problem.
1 second.
Mark, maybe you take this one for now.
Yeah, John's running a zone at the moment
Yeah.
with his son. So what I think there'll be definitely be your low block zone, because it's quite pretty prevalent in the senior game, and I'd imagine there'll be some crossover with with what that looks like from a deep defence perspective for the national team. So having solutions to how to break that down, both through, around, and over, I think will be important. Obviously, the aerial ball. There's the
Hmm.
aerial ball tweak in terms of the rule, whereby obviously the moment it's touched, you can then go and engage as long as you're five. Plus, there'll be
Hmm.
the obviously 5,000 different interpretations of what five looks like and what intercept looks like. So I think that will be a challenge. I think for the boys as well, there's the use of the referral and actually managing
Hmm.
themselves and having a process of how you manage yourself with going for referrals. So I think that adds a different layer to an under 21 environment that they don't necessarily always have, although Sutton Johor does have the referrals in, doesn't it, John? So I think that's quite a nice sort of training ground for the boys experiencing that. So yeah, that would be my take on what I've seen from an under 21 perspective. But also attacking wise, it's always exciting the under 21s because you get that balance of like youth, rawness, and before maybe it becomes the pressure cauldron of what a senior tournament looks like. So actually, you get quite a nice bit of flair that comes with it, which I think is quite interesting. Under 21 tournaments are always good because they're starting to understand the game really well, the good shape structure, but they've still got that bit of maybe naivety, maybe flair that actually makes for the game to be quite exciting.
Have
Yeah, I
players
think
who will be joining you in the Junior World Cup, but maybe already get the experience this summer of the European Championship with the seniors? Are there any players like that in your team?
yeah, a few potentially. Yeah, so there are a couple of under 21s who are already in the centralized program with the seniors. So that is that is a potential. So that would be really exciting for those players if they can make their way into the Euro squad, and obviously great for us if they've got that experience behind them as well. Really exciting for them.
Yeah. Will they then bring that more maturity of the senior game where it's more about the defense first compared to the gung ho mentality of the younger players? How will you balance that then maybe?
Well, the player I'm thinking of is a very attacking, skillful player. So
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a way around you. Hopefully, it's a way
yeah.
around you said, but I'm not. Maybe I'm not sure. But yeah, hopefully. I
he'll
mean, if
be
you're
he'll be attacking,
playing
John.
in the
He'll be
seniors,
attacking.
yeah, yeah. I think the experience will be amazing for them. And I think a few years ago, something I'm quite pleased about is we didn't have any of our under 21s anywhere near the seniors.
Mhm.
And we are, even if some of the players won't quite make the Euro squad, we've got like many more on the radar now around the squad, which is really good.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, guys, we've been talking almost for an hour and a half already, so let's try and
Oh.
wrap this up because yeah, there are sons knocking on the door, but there are other obligations as well, probably in life. But a final question here from KP2704 again. So hockey is behind football in terms of its formalized education structures for developing coaches. Where and how do you suggest that they spend their time in order to accelerate their development? Obviously, first caveat, come and watch the hockeysite.com. That's a must see, yeah? That's a must see for developing coaches. But how would should they go and how should they yeah take that
I think
educational path in their own hands?
Yeah, I think your point was really good at the very end about it's in your own hands. So I think for me, the best coaches that I know and have worked with and I've got interactions with, they're in charge of their own development. They're not waiting for people to put them on a program, put them on a course. Fundamentally, I think you've got to become a scholar of the game. So, I mean, I will spend at least once or twice a week. I'll watch a full length game, code it, sort my databases out so I know what's going on and I'm current. I'll pick up the phone, speak to different coaches. I'll research. So I think it like you can't wait for other people to do things for you. So my biggest advice is um, to take control of it yourself. A formal education, i.e., a certificate, will only ever get you so far. I think actually the connections that you build and the work that you put in yourself is probably going to be the most important bit, and that's my biggest advice to all coaches. Really, is about do it yourself basically, because you've got to get out there. The other bit is to get a team and take them on a journey and try and work hard with them, like fail and go again. I think again they're going to be the two biggest bits of advice from me.
Yeah, it's good. Some really good comments from Mark there. I think away from the kind of the formalized stuff you can do with your association, I think the thing being really self-motivated to do your own stuff is really important. So when I was starting my journey as a coach, I used to watch, I got a hold of a load of games. I was lucky enough to be able to get the kind of coaching footage from Olympic Games and World Cups and Europeans, and I just watched game after game after game, and I started putting together little databases of skills and tactics, and like I reflect on that taught me so much at the time in terms of like learning so much about the game and being a student of the game. So I'll definitely encourage that. I don't know, I'm not sure how easy it is for people to do, but I think definitely watching from a tactical point of view, end on through the pitch is a lot easier to learn rather than, sometimes the YouTube stuff that you get side on. I think sometimes that is good for looking at skills, but it's very hard to see what's actually going on in terms of how teams are playing and formations and defenses and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely watch and like go and meet people as well. So I made a big effort when I was a young coach to arrange to have a coffee with different coaches and talk to them, and I probably annoyed the hell out of them, but go there on with a load of questions and stuff you wanted to find out, and that for me was really interesting as well.
No, absolutely. Guys, a final question then from me to end this session. Um, what would be your three key takeaways for coaches at club level or at school level or at university level who are involved in either the youth academy of that or that organization, or they are maybe coaching the first team, but they have a lot of young kids coming through, how to balance that? So what are your three main coaching tips for people dealing with young kids making their move to the senior level, whether it's international or club level? Mark,
Don't mind having a go first at this one.
John.
I'd say for me, like, don't be afraid to teach them the basics well, and actually really give them a strong foundation. I would say definitely encourage a good attitude. Whether that's hard work or respect for the umpires, whatever it might be. I think that's a really important side of it. And thirdly, definitely make it fun. Yeah, try and make your training fun. Try and make the players want to be there and stuff like that. And I think if you do those three things, it will stand you in pretty good stead.
My bit, well, I think a really good 3 points from John, but just to build on some of those would be make sure it's planned. So be prepared to deviate from a plan, but you've got to have an understanding of what you're trying to do and when and where. So I think planning is really important. Something I pride myself on, and making sure that I know what's going on. Um, but a bit on the values bit, really trying to instill some of the mindset things, particularly young players. I've got a little 8-year-old who is a bit of a social experiment around hockey, and and now making sure that life's not too easy for them. So yeah, make sure it's challenging, but make sure they've got good values. So yeah, people, my next door neighbours will definitely hear me in the garden saying, "Are you quitting now, Harry?" So I think maybe trying to make sure that they've got some good values around that. I think could be important.
No, absolutely. some good lessons there. And yeah, let's add the comment here from Nakbakbok here. I really appreciate these answers. In the end, it's the coach's journey and how much he or she is willing to put in, and that is, I think, an absolute truth. Okay, John, Mark, thanks very much for your time here and for sharing the knowledge with us, sharing your insights in the programs that you're leading there in England and GB. Coaches, thank you very much for sharing your questions and your comments here as well. Always good to see that these sessions are interactive and that you bring your own questions to these. So, guys, thanks very much. Sorry for taking you a lot longer than was anticipated. But yeah, when we're talking hockey, it's kind of difficult to shut up sometimes, huh? So, guys, thank you very much. Bye bye, and talk soon again. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Thanks, Ernst.
Okay, almost off air.